Thank you so much for joining us by Zoom. We have not a full house because I think everybody took advantage of not having to get in their cars. But we are excited to be here. We're excited to be hosted by CZI. Thank you very much for loaning us this fantastic space. We're here for a dual tag. So tags are Thrive action groups. And we have lots of different Thrive action groups. This one is both environment and sustainability and basic needs and safety net. Sorry, it's very weird talking with the mask and a microphone, so I'll get used to it. Anyway, I would like to tell you a tiny bit about Thrive and then a couple of the events that are coming up, and then we'll go straight into the panel. So Thrive is the Alliance of Nonprofits for San Mateo County. I think most of you know that. We are a membership-based organization. And on the next slide, you'll see that what we do is we strengthen individuals, we strengthen organizations, and we strengthen communities. And we do this through capacity building, through policy and advocacy, and through cross-sector collaboration. This is an example of all of those things. We are building capacity of nonprofits by hopefully making more connections for more opportunities for food. We're doing cross-sector collaboration. We have government, private business, and nonprofits in the room. And this is all about a bill that was passed. SB, and I'm gonna just mess up the number. 1383. Oh my God. I've said that to myself 400 times and I still can't get it right. So it's about that bill and how that affects us. So this is a great example of the stuff Thrive does. Thrive is a membership-based organization. So if your organization is not a member, we would love to have you. If you're an individual, you can also have an individual membership. I'd love to tell you about some of the exciting events that are coming up in a couple of weeks because we've really been working hard on these events. These are some of the programs that we have ongoing. But on Monday, July 11th, we're going to continue with a conversation that we've started in December about policing in San Mateo County. I think we were all kind of shocked when we looked at the data about the racial disparities in policing. We had a big discussion about that in December. And now we're going to talk about the path forward. Where do we go from here? We have this information. We know there are lots of different ways to move forward. What's working? What isn't working? We're going to hear from community members, from law enforcement, and from you. We'll have time for question and answer. So in addition, we have the Thrive Resource Room. This is something that we do every other month. It's an opportunity to learn more about Thrive. So if there's somebody in your staff who isn't familiar with Thrive, it's a good place to come. But we also have a theme each time and different people present. And this time it's going to be about jobs. So we have NovaWorks presenting, Renaissance Center, which talks about entrepreneurship and this has training programs, and a new program called Futuro Health, which provides free medical training for people. And it's sponsored by SCIU and some of the larger healthcare providers. And it's very exciting. And so we hope you come and learn about that. Our arts and culture group is getting back into the swing of things. Arts and culture organizations really were hit hard by the pandemic. And we want to give them a chance to really reconnect and talk about how we're moving forward. That'll be in this space and we'll include lunch. Every other month we do Wellness Wednesdays. This is something for all nonprofit staff because as you can imagine, as you guys actually all know, this has been very hard on nonprofit staff. So we wanted to do something to give back. And this particular one is all about gratitude. And then, as I think most of you know from all of my emails, we do a lot of work on voter outreach. We had really low voter turnout in the primary. Now we did have higher voter turnout than neighboring counties and then the state, but still very low. And these decisions matter when we're talking about the problems that we're trying to address that are systemic. Voting the people in office who care about the same things you care about is probably the most effective thing you can do to make change. So if you're interested in getting more involved in voter outreach for your community, please join us. We're going to do some analysis of the last election again here. or by Zoom, and or feel free to reach out to me. Thank you. And then for our environment and sustainability group, I just want to let you know that we have a couple of highlights. So we do this every month, but we've been working on this for 4 or 5 years, building community. Because when we first started, there really wasn't somewhere in San Mateo County where everybody who was talking about environment and sustainability were meeting. So we've had a large number of groups come and participate, over 350 different organizations. You can see our fund numbers up on the screen. But we're going to be doing a very exciting summit. And Nuestra Casa is one of our partners. They're in the room right now, along with Climate Resilient Communities and Rise South City. Going to be hosting a county-wide climate summit. Because again, we've never had everybody in the same room. And we really want to have an opportunity for everyone to collaborate and to really focus on how climate change is affecting the frontline communities. This is a conversation really for everyone in all sectors. So very excited about that. October 5th, 2022, mark your calendars. So for today, why are we talking about this? Well, we're talking about this for several reasons. This bill managed to fundamentally change how food is recovered. This is something that's actually near and dear to me because my transition from the for-profit world to the nonprofit world a very long time ago, before some of you were born, was from food service into food rescue. So I think all of us hate to see food wasted. But from an environmental point of view, wasted food is one of the largest emitters of greenhouse gases. So this bill was designed to address this. And again, I think California is really at the forefront of this. And I always feel like, wow, why am I doing all of this work in San Mateo County that's like already so far ahead in all of the things we do? We're already so progressive. We already do all of this. But I think we're often a test case. Like if we can do it here, then we can do it other places too. So it's really important that these things are successful, not just for us, but to show that this can be done. And we have this fantastic panel here that's going to talk about how they are doing it, why they're doing it, and the different levels of success. And what else do we need to make it even better? So with that, I want to introduce our panel. And we sent out everyone's bio, so I'm not going to go through the whole bio, although I'm very impressed with everyone's bio. And I'm going to just introduce the order that you're going to speak in, and then I will pass off the microphone. So first we'll have Tracy Weatherby, Vice President of Strategy and Advocacy for Second Harvest. Then Jack Steinman, Resource Conservation Specialist in Waste Reduction, San Mateo County Office of Sustainability. You can wave when then we don't have to guess who you are. Okay. Sonia Escobedo, Food Recovery Program Coordinator for Nuestra Casa. Then we'll have Mauricio Cordova, Chief Operations Officer from Loaves and Fishes. Then Latrice Taylor, Associate Director of Programs and Services from Samaritan House. And then we'll round out with Ryan Bailey, Food Management Coordinator, Flagship Culinary. Okay, so Tracy, I'm handing it to you.
Well, thank you so much for having us here and for learning about this law. It's such a huge opportunity, and as Petra said, it's a opportunity for California to show people how it's done. I wanted to give just a little bit of background on the food bank. I see so many people I know here, so this may not be necessary. I'll go very fast, but if you can just go to the next slide. You know what food banks do is we serve as kind of the hub of charitable food. And so we work across our counties. This may be the old set of slides I sent, I think. So I'll just do this verbally. We work with over 300 partners across Santa Clara and San Mateo counties to provide food for free at over 900 locations. We never charge any of our partners for the food we provide. And we get a lot of that food directly rescued from farmers. So it's already really benefiting the environment. We're able to get donated produce. 50% of what we give out is typically donated produce. And we just pay the pick and pack fees to get that out of the fields. And food rescue has always been a big part of what we and our partners have done. And so if you look at kind of the big picture of what's been going on the last few years, all these food sources are more important than they've ever been. Before the pandemic, we were serving 250,000 people across both counties with our partners. It's now, it's still remaining at over 450,000, so 80% more than pre-pandemic. And our expectation is that this is not going to go down because the challenges are systemic. You know, the cost of living here, the cost of housing, and this huge mismatch between what people earn and what it costs to live here. So, so this is kind of the number of people and the amount of pounds we've been serving. Last year, we topped out at over 140 million pounds of food given out. You can go to the next slide. So, so we try and make food available really to anyone who needs it. Our technical guideline is people who are 275% of the federal poverty and less, because that's like $70,000 for a family of four. So try to imagine surviving on that in Silicon Valley. So often the food that we provide is helping people stay housed because they can afford to pay that rent or pay their childcare. We, with our partners, are operating a combination of drive-throughs and walk-ups. As we somewhat transition out of the pandemic, we're trying to move more of our sites back to client choice so that clients can have the food they need and want rather than walking away with a box of food, which people are appreciative of, but you know, often it's not the food that they're going to be able to utilize best. So if you go to the next slide. So this is just kind of a map of where we are all across the county. You can see that the places there aren't many dots, that's pretty much the mountains. Otherwise, there are a whole lot of dots, and we enjoy working with all of these different partners. If you go to the next slide. So how does food rescue work? You know, some of our partners also rescue food entirely on their own. They've developed local relationships. But for the majority of the food that we rescue, we're partnering with a whole bunch of organizations. It's 79 of our agencies across both counties that do food rescue themselves under our auspices. 31 of those are in San Mateo County. And so the food rescue happens in a couple of different ways. If it's a very, very large donor, like a wholesaler or a very large Costco, we may come with our tractor trailers and pick up every day. But there are a lot of grocery stores that are not donating at those volumes. And so a better solution to get the food out quicker while it's still good and appropriate for the community is to link them up with one of our partners that's nearby. Our food sourcing team is working really hard to also pay attention to who wants the kind of food that's being provided. So as this law has come into being, we're getting calls from more smaller ethnic grocery stores. We're trying to make sure we link those up with partners who are serving that community where the food that they're donating will be really appreciated. And so we have a lot of these partners who are picking up all the time. Our role in this is that we help manage the relationships. We have an IT reporting system that people use so that we can do all of the centralized reporting, report back to them, and keep track of the overall food rescue. We train people on food safety, and we often provide infrastructure to help them do that food rescue, you know, whether it's scales or, you know, if they're a large enough rescuer, maybe it's a van. You know, there's a whole variety of infrastructure levels. So if you go to the next slide. This just shows you how much of this is literally food rescue that would fall under 1383, the grocery stores and wholesalers. You know, it's about 16 million pounds now. It went up a little during the pandemic because food rescue is a weird beast in that when supply chains go out of whack, things, you know, change, right? You know, when the pandemic hit, everyone was out of everything and then they had too much of everything. And so you can kind of see those ups and downs in food rescue on an ongoing basis. So I think that was my last slide. Maybe not. No, just to give you a sense, this is the kind of infrastructure we might provide. We set people up with pallet jacks that have scales or floor scales, thermal blankets, you know, because you need to be really careful when you're rescuing this food that it is treated properly so that it's going to be safe and nutritious for the people who are going to receive it. And then the last slide I just wanted to show, and this is may not be appropriate now, but it explains a little bit about tier 1, tier 2. So this may be something you're speaking to, Jack, but I know that people will hear about what the different tiers that affect the law are, because what I've been speaking to is almost entirely grocery rescue. There is a whole nother section that is meals rescue, and some of our panelists here will be more expert in speaking about that. So I think that's a good starting summary.
All right, testing. I think this is working. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining this conversation. My name is Jack Steinman, and I've worked in the food recovery space for about 5-6 years now, and I really think this is one of the most exciting moments that I've seen so far. I work with the county's Office of Sustainability. I'm a resource conservation specialist. And for those of you who aren't familiar with the county's Office of Sustainability, Michelle, if we could go to the next slide. It's a county department whose goal is to ensure that every community throughout the county has a sustainable and livable environment to live in today for generations, folks living here today, and then for generations to come as well. And the office that I work in, we have a range of different programs. There's some that have to do with climate change, climate adaptation, waste prevention, and then creating more livable communities. So we work on things like bike infrastructure, affordable housing. I work on the waste prevention team, and my day-to-day, I work exclusively on SB 1383 implementation. And that law, it covers a lot. It's more than food recovery, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But that is what I work on. That's my bread and butter. Michelle, could we go to the next slide? Yes. So I do want to talk a little bit more about 1383 just because it's going to come up a lot today. So SB 1383 is a law passed by the state of California. It's going to be the same here in San Mateo County as it is in San Francisco, Modesto, LA. And this law, it's a climate action law, and it's really a first of its kind piece of legislation. Its goal is to reduce the emission of methane, which is a powerful greenhouse gas that's produced when organic materials, so food, paper products, and yard trimmings rot in landfills. It produces this really potent greenhouse gas. So SB 1383 seeks to reduce methane emissions by drastically cutting the amount of organic material California sends to its landfills. And a really great thing about 1383 is that it recognizes that a huge portion of the organic waste we send to our landfills is surplus edible food that's coming from all kinds of different industries, grocery stores, wholesalers, farms. So SB 1383 sets two main goals. There's a 75% reduction of organic material going to the landfill. That's the first goal. But the second goal, which is what we're really here to talk about today, is this. There's a second goal of increasing the recovery of edible food by 20% by 2025. And 1383 will do this really by requiring cities and counties to pass local ordinances that mandate that large food generating businesses sign agreements, set up systems to with organizations like food banks and food recovery groups like we have here speaking to recover the surplus food that they generate and redistribute that food back to the communities that they serve. So if we can go to the next slide. So this is the same image that Tracy had. It's an important one, it really is. So I want to give you all an idea of the types of businesses that are going to be impacted by these local ordinances that will need to set up these food recovery programs. There's really two categories. There's the tier 1 generators and the tier 2 generators. The tier 1 generators, those are types of businesses that have more shelf-stable, non-prepared foods. So that's going to be your grocery stores, your Costco's, wholesalers, distributors, and then some food service providers as well. Then the tier 2 generators, I should say the tier 1 generators, this law is in effect right now. They should be seeking these food recovery relationships today. The tier 2 generators, those are businesses that have more prepared foods, like large restaurants or hotels or events. And these types of businesses will need food recovery systems by 2024. And if we can go ahead and take a look at that, take it in. And then if we can go to the next slide. So in San Mateo County, we have one countywide edible food recovery program. What that really means is that the county and the Office of Sustainability, we worked with every single city across the county to really join forces on how we're going to be implementing this state law. So over the last 2 years, my team, we've been working with each of the cities to pass the same ordinance in every jurisdiction. So the edible food recovery rules in Daly City are going to be the same as they are in Half Moon Bay or Pescadero, East Palo Alto. And then we've also put up a system where the county is going to be responsible for all the education, inspections, enforcements, and food recovery capacity building that has to be done through this law as well. So we hope that this joined approach in the long term is going to help create a more efficient system. So having one system is going to be more consistent rather than 23 separate but similar systems. And if we could go to the next slide. And I'll leave it at that, but here's my contact information. If anyone's interested to learn more, please feel free to contact me. And here's a QR code too to a website that I invite you all to check out. It just talks a little bit more about 1383, countywide program, and edible food recovery. That's all I got.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you all for coming. My name is Sonia Escobedo. I am the Food Recovery Program Coordinator at Nuestra Casa. I want to share a little bit more about the work that we do. We started in East Palo Alto, but we serve multiple communities members in Redwood City and Bellhaven. The community members we serve are mostly Latinx, but many are Spanish speaking, but we do serve everyone. I'm really excited to be here and tell you a little bit more about our food recovery program. Since 2019, we partnered with San Mateo County and Second Harvest to rescue edible food from local grocery markets and deliver it to thousands of people in East Palo Alto and Redwood City. Before the pandemic, we served roughly around 2,000 individuals per month. That number tripled to 6,000 almost overnight with the start of the COVID pandemic, and that never went down. We also rescue between 20 to 1,000 pounds of food from the landfill. That has added also a benefit of reducing greenhouse gases. Some people might ask, why not just leave this to the food pantry? Why is a local nonprofit going to all this trouble? The reality is that many people we serve don't have access to transportation to get to the food pantry. The second issue is that some people may feel intimidated about going to the food pantry. Having it right in their backyard, in their neighborhood, makes it easier. The third thing is we don't just serve food, we connect. Our food team knows many of our families and our promotoras regularly on site connecting community members with important resources. Our vision for this program is to continue perfecting our process at our current sites and to add more stores to our pickups. If we had unlimited resources and capacity, we would love to add more satellite locations in Bellhaven and East Palo Alto. But that would depend on funding. In terms of SB 1383 and how it's impacted our program, first, we are getting a lot more food from our partners. SB 1383 allows us to be more strict about what the stores can donate, and the county has our back on that. And it has to be good quality food. If they do give us non-edible food, we can refuse it. We didn't really have that ability prior to the law. So the quality of the food we're getting is much better. We can go to the next slide. We used to deal a lot with trash, which was an expensive headache, and we weren't set up to deal with it. Second, the legislation has opened the door for more partners, and gave us the visibility. However, our capacity to add new store outlets is unfortunately limited. I want to share one last thought. Many of us have moved on from the pandemic, but the economic reality is still very prevalent in our community. We have clients who have lost their jobs back in March 2020 and were never rehired. We have a mass housing displacement underway, and inflation is eating into people's budgets and really scaring them. This program is extremely meaningful to the people we serve because it's nutritious and it saves them about $400 per month in groceries that they can put towards rent or utilities instead. I know our community members are really grateful for it, and it has been a really big pleasure being part of this program. Thank you.
Okay. I was thinking we're going back and forth in the tables. All right, everybody can hear me? Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. Yes, I did not send any slides. I think sometimes I tend to take away from what we're trying to say, so we're gonna go without him today. And my boss is watching this, so she's gonna ask me why I didn't send slides, but that's fine. My name is Mauricio Cordova. I'm the Chief Operations Officer for Loaves and Fishes Family Kitchen in San Jose. We give you a little fast background of who we are. We've been around for 42 years almost. And for about 35 of those, we were just a soup kitchen in the San Jose area. And then we found a way to mass produce food and cook it in our kitchen and distribute it to organizations that needed it, like Life Moves, shelters, Life Kits for senior congregate meals and so forth. And we do that both in Santa Clara County and San Mateo County. So we work in both counties. So we have a pretty long outreach from down in Gilroy up to about past San Mateo, a couple places. So we do a lot of different things. About 3 years ago, 2019, things changed, not only for the pandemic, but we were able to merge in a food recovery program called a la carte. And some of you might have seen those trucks around. And that gave us the ability to expand our services from just cooking in our kitchen and distributing that food to all the organizations we were working with, but also be able to find food that was already cooked and take it out to the community. That gave us the ability to double our services just almost overnight. And it's a very neat, it was a very neat opportunity to do, because not only our services have continued to grow like everybody else's. Since the beginning of the pandemic, we have seen our services being required for over 300% more. So we went from 600,000 meals to about 1.8 million meals right now a year distributed out to the communities. Half of that right now is food recovered. So, the a la carte program, which is just completely 100% food recovery, it gave us the ability to do that. Instead of having to cook more from our kitchen, we found a way or a program that will allow us to recover the food and take it out, to repeat myself here. But that was the beauty of it, because it gives us the ability to automatically be able to not only help the community, but also help serve the environment. Since the inception of this program, we recovered about 1.2 million meals, which is about 1,400 metric tons of greenhouses. And we've been able to provide all those meals out to the community, by doing this. And we have great partners. You cannot do this kind of program without great partners. Now, CalRecycle did provided the seed money to start this program. And so and SB 1383 was part of that. So that was some of the beauty of this whole SB 1383 grant law. It created grants, it created opportunities for programs like a la carte to be created. And, we were fortunate enough to have it and be able to really, continue expanding our services, but also helping the environment. We have right now 4 temperature control trucks that allows us to pick up. They could pick up to 1,500 meals a day at full capacity. Right now, we're picking up about 3,000 meals from different locations. Stanford University, airports, some hospitals, pretty much all the campuses of Meta, aka Facebook, in the Bay Area. And they're probably our greatest partner because of the way they do things. To have a food recovery program like ours, it requires partnership. And that's part of the things that when we're talking about obstacles and other things on the law, is finding the right partnerships. And it's partnerships in both ends, not only the food recovery organization receiving the food, but the food producer, and making sure that they do both of their parts and understanding food safety and everything that goes with that part. We'll have a lot of conversations, and I knew some of the information that we were I have on my slides was already up there, but 40% of all food produced in the United States goes to waste. So you got to think about that. There's enough food produced already in the United States to feed everybody and change. We really don't need to produce more food. We just need to be more efficient with the food that we have. With that said, and we can throw in stats and talk about millions of pounds and so forth, but it's very hard to imagine. But think about this. Everybody's seen a picture of the Rose Bowl. I'm assuming everybody has. We throw enough food every day, just in California, to fill that up every day and start all over. So you think about that visual, kind of puts it into perspective. So that's what we're here for. That's what we're here to talk about. That's why I'm so excited about the a la carte program and partners like Meta and all the ones that we have to be able to help us prepare food. We don't do grocery. The food bank does a fantastic job. Thank you, Tracy. We do prepare meals, which is a little different process, and it has its own idiosyncrasies and everything else. So we really enjoy what we're doing. We love the partners that we have, and the ability to save the environment is great. So we see it as a win-win-win on that sense. And we're hoping to continue growing and partnering with more organizations. So our goal would be to do about $2 million meals of prepared food every year. Right now, we're about halfway there on that. So that's pretty much all I have on that sense. The rest I'm sure we're going to talk about some of the other things as we go through the questions. So thank you very much. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you for having me.
Good afternoon. I'm Latrice Taylor, the Associate Director of Programs and Services at Samaritan House. And it is truly a pleasure to be here this afternoon with all of you. As you hear all of us speak to how important it is that this law has come into play now, because none of this around grocery rescue is new to us, but it may be new to you who's listening. And we're looking forward to more people coming on and partnering. Samaritan House has been around almost 50 years in San Mateo County. We're one of 8 core service agencies where if you go to a core, that's where it starts in San Mateo County as far as getting assistance with food, clothing, shelter. Samaritan House has been doing a lot of work around free medical care. We have 2 free clinics, one right here in Redwood City, one in San Mateo. We have one of the shelters, Safe Harbor, which is out near San Francisco Airport. We do financial empowerment, financial assistance. But the big thing that we do is food. That is our largest program. And we know how the pandemic has hit so many people. We thought we were doing something before, When we were serving, pre-COVID, we were serving, I think it was 1.4 million meals, hot and cold, in a year. Now we're at 3 million. We have had to expand because so many people are coming to us just for food, because so many are food insecure right now. Our food program, it includes, we do meals for after-school programs for children, summer camps, senior facilities, shelters. We do mobile meals for those who are homebound, who are aging in place, or those who are disabled. They can't get out of their homes, and so they're shut in. They're dependent upon our volunteers to come and deliver a hot meal Monday through Friday. We have the drive-through grocery, because we're hoping to one day open our Course community store where people can come in and do food choice, but right now, COVID. So we want to be safe, and we still have a big tent in our parking lot where people drive through and check in. And I know you've seen it on TV where others drive through and they get their box of groceries, and it's for the week. And on average, as was said, we hopefully are saving $300 to $400 a month for somebody's grocery bill that can now go to the high rent or the high utilities or whatever else is a bill that's out there that people are faced with each and every day. So in saying that, we were doing food recovery before it was cool. All the organizations here, we were doing it. Why? Because actually it was out of need. Because when you think about it, like we cook over 1,000 meals every day that we're feeding folks in San Mateo County, but we had to purchase initially. Some 40 odd years ago, we had to purchase. Then it was actually the CEO at the time, John Kelly, who said, oh, let's go to the grocery store, and took our program manager, Ruby, and went and just asked, do you mind giving us food? That then we were able to turn into the hot meals or cold meals, bag lunches, what have you. And then it slowly built over the years to where now we're starting to get food from, say, Trader Joe's. And we get it from Safeway and other places that have bought into this, but not everybody's on board. There are caterers and restaurants now that Food Runners picks up food and then they deliver to any of us. So then we turn around, any of the food that's coming in that's been rescued, we turn around and give it right back out to the community, because we see every day somebody walking up to us saying, I'm hungry. I can't pay for my groceries. And it should be said, there is shame in that. People have been self-sufficient for so long, paycheck to paycheck, and then COVID did a number on a lot of us. And so now, where they were struggling to survive, it's even 3- and 4-fold for a lot of our communities. Right now in the Bay Area, for a family of 4, it takes $150,000 to meet basic necessities. Basic. That means to pay your rent, which is about 60 to 70% of your income. Then I got to find food and clothing, go to work, go to school, the gas, and then start it all over again the very next day. We've had to learn how to work on a shoestring. All the organizations here have had to learn. And so now we're saying we need more people to partner, more businesses, the restaurants, the caterers, stores, anybody who hasn't signed up, help make a difference with us. We still need more. Yes, we can fundraise. Yes, we can do contracts with our cities. A lot of our cities are on board and the county is on board, but we need businesses, we need partners who, instead of the food going to waste, instead of like when we're standing in the grocery store and we pick up that apple and it's like, it's got a blemish on it. I don't want that one. And we go. But some folks, when they would donate to us, that's what they donate, that's stuff that they don't want. But our clients deserve dignity and respect in the food that they receive. So now the law, it's great because now we don't have to take other people's trash, to be quite honest. Now we can serve hot food, bag lunches, because we even partner with those who are serving doing street medicine to the homeless out in the marshes who they don't get any meal, except for our partners who are out there on the streets helping them and can give them a sandwich or something that'll help them to get by. So it is so helpful to us to have this law in effect, because now hopefully that means it will drive more partners in the door to say, you know what, I want to help. I've been educated by the folks who are here today about what's been going on, how I can make a difference. We can save on the greenhouse gases. We can stop adding to the landfills. We can hopefully feed the gentleman who came to our food bank, our food distribution, who never needed us before. And he had come for other things, but he actually came and dropped off $5 to one of my workers. And that worker brought it to me and said, here, his contact information. He just wanted to give back. It was just his way of giving back, because we had been feeding him in a time of need. That makes a difference. That's why we're passionate about this type of work. And I could keep talking, but I won't. So I just want to say thank you for passing this law, because hopefully it'll make a difference and help make our jobs much easier. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I'm gonna get up here just so I can see the slides a little bit better. But again, my name is Ryan Bailey, Food Management Coordinator with Flagship Culinary Services. And I think that's a good segue actually, because she was talking about food producers and partnering with them, right? And that's where we fall into. That's where Flagship Culinary comes into play here. So just a little bit about Flagship. Flagship provides janitorial services, facility maintenance services, but also culinary services to businesses nationwide. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for anything that you may need for your business. And not trying to plug Flagship, but just gives it some context of what Flagship is. And so we fall into that tier 1 category of a food producer. So we are contracted again to Meta, as Mauricio had mentioned earlier, and we provide, yes. So we've been partnering with Loaves and Fishes since 2019. So we had heard about the law and wanted to get ahead of the game here and actually start a food rescue program. And so again, if you're not familiar with a kind of a culinary tech cafeteria style, we're providing a breakfast, lunch, and dinner service each day. And as a result, we have surplus product that we are able to donate to the community. And so I'd like to tell you a little bit more about that. And that's what we'll get into some of the slides here. And so hopefully we can answer some of your questions from a producer side of, you know, what we've done, kind of our standard operating procedure and things like that. Because again, you know, to Jack's point, right, this was effective in January of 2022. So if you haven't been thinking about some of the things that you need to do and you're a food producer, these might be able to help you. So maybe we can go to the next slide here. All right, so this is kind of what we've been talking about today, though. But you know, some of the issues, right? Tackling climate change and also food insecurity, right? Those are some of the two issues, and that's what's so great about SB 1383 is that it tends to tackle both of those issues, right? And that's something that Petra and I were talking about on the phone call earlier this week. And so the goal, right? And again, these are some stats that we saw earlier, is to reduce the amount of organic waste that's going into the landfill, and then while at the same time providing food to people who have you know, food insecurities here, right? And so what we're doing that, how we're doing that and accomplishing that is through organic waste recycling and surplus food recovery program. Next slide, please, Michelle. So in anticipation of SB 1383, we started a sustainability program. We were doing composting kind of well before that, but again, in 2019, we started with 2 pilot cafes here in Menlo Park. We have mini cafes, but we wanted to start it with just 2, refine that process, and then expand from there. So in 2021, after that kind of hiatus for the pandemic that we all kind of experienced there, was the expansion to all the Meta HQ cafeterias, and then also into the Fremont cafeterias, the San Francisco cafeterias, Sunnyvale, And next slide, please. And then also into nationwide. So it was really the SB 1383 that was kind of this benchmark for us to help expand nationwide, right? So again, having these types of discussions is so important because again, now we're making contacts with different folks, learning about different organizations, and then expanding nationwide, right? So it started with the Bay Area. It now includes New York, Chicago, Boston, Seattle, and then 11 North American data centers, right? And that really, again, all started with SB 1383 coming to an effect. Next slide, please. So just kind of in a nutshell, how does our standard operating procedure work, and how does the program work? So really we're repurposing fresh prepared food and safely cooling it per our HACCP standards. So that's Hazard Analysis Critical Control Point, the team that we have on site here. And then we're packaging it safely. So in containers that you can, a family can either reuse at home or that they can just rinse real quick and then recycle. We're labeling it correctly. So with the title, the ingredients, the allergens, and the date, right? Because that's all important information, right? When someone's receiving this product, they need to know, hey, what kind of allergens may be coming in this food, right? And what's the ingredients? And most importantly, right, when was it cooked? So we're safely storing it in our refrigeration, and then it's collected by our partners like Loaves and Fishes. Next slide, please. What's been great about the partnership and what's kind of unique about our relationship with Loaves and Fishes here in the Bay Area is their a la carte program. And this is what Mauricio was mentioning earlier. And if you can see here on some of these slides, is that the whole back of the vehicle is actually a kind of a walk-in refrigeration unit. All right, so that allows us to, again, cool the product, and then the next day they come and collect the food. We have a Monday through Friday collection because our footprint is so large. I would say it's, something like a university cafeterias on site, right? You've got several cafeterias and you're always gonna have surplus from those services that you have. So if you see here, right, in the middle picture, that is kind of the middle cabin, where on the far right, you're seeing it's, again, kind of food truck style setup, and they are actually distributing it right from that window out to the community. What's great about this is, one, it solves that problem that we had back in the day of how do we safely distribute this product to the community, right? And so at one point we had chefs trying to put this product in the back of their cars, which again, that's fine if you have proper cooling bags and things like that. That's totally fine. It's just we didn't have that at that time. So unfortunately we had to stop the program for a little bit. And again, that was a long time ago. And this, this partnership with Loaves and Fishes is where it helped us solve the problem of how to distribute that cooked and prepared food to the community. And something mentioned here, right, that's great, is we don't have to provide our speed racks to Loaves and Fishes. We don't have to provide our sheet trays, carts, anything like that. That's all kind of just built into the truck there. Next slide, please. So what changes have we seen since implementing SB 1383? So in addition to composting, which we had already done before, right, the food donations was one of the big side of it. We also have a standard operating procedure specifically for donations now. We have a contract signed, which is something that had been mentioned earlier, right, with SB 1383 and being part of a tier 1 that we had to have signed with Loaves and Fishes. Scheduled donation collections, again, which wouldn't have been possible without this law and starting the program, and then reporting donations, donation data to government agencies starting in July of 2022. So that's when we'll start actually reporting what we've donated to this government agency. And so we're still kind of waiting on that information to come through. Next slide, yes. So how has SB 1383 helped? So it's created, again, like I said earlier, kind of a benchmark on how to expand this program nationwide. And we've used this SOP and the standard operating procedure to really expand it to all those other sites like New York and Seattle and Boston and Chicago. And it tackles those two concerns, right? Climate change and food insecurity. Next slide, please. So House Loaves and Fishes facilitated connections between our organization and the community. So extensive work has been done with the Loaves and Fishes team, but also with Meta, with connecting us with local schools. So, our thought was, how do we get this product, Monday through Friday to people who really need it? Where are people, kind of congregating and meeting? And the idea was, schools in the area, right? There are families always coming to these schools to pick up their children Monday through Friday. This would be a great area, kind of off to the side, that not even off to the side, right there in the parking lot with their Loaves and Fishes truck, which is again it's easy, it's approachable for the community, right, to come and get these donations. So our donations are distributed directly to families in that hyper-local community. So it's been quite a partnership with Loaves and Fishes, but also the Meta Community Engagement Team to make those partnerships work. And again, that's how Loaves and Fishes has kind of helped us facilitate to the community. Next slide, please. So I just want to go over just a couple barriers that I think we all should be discussing, and hopefully we can answer some of those questions today, and have some solutions to some of these barriers. So next slide. So food surplus infrastructure does exist in California. However, expansion of existing programs is greatly needed. So again, that's where we found that Loaves and Fishes has been able to kind of scale with us as we've added cafeterias and our sites have increased. Loaves and Fishes has been able to increase their footprint with their trucks and then also their partnerships. So the data is needed to properly assess each region to provide an adequate infrastructure. So again, when it comes to all these different partners, right, is how much food are we going to be providing? And that's, again, where some of that data earlier that you've seen has helped. But again, I think it's going to be a learning process kind of for all of us with this new law. And so, again, that's one more reason that it's great that we're having this discussion here. Storing food surplus at a restaurant can be difficult. So again, that's why we do collections Monday through Friday, just so that our walk-ins aren't, constantly building up with product, but we also have a 72-hour time limit where that we can be storing the food that we're donating. So that's why we've set the 72-hour limit, not only for food safety, but also just because, again, we don't want too much product building up in our walk-in refrigeration units. Next slide, please. So distribution to local food recovery programs is challenging. California food recovery programs must provide a curbside pickup option. Not must, but again, it is what we found is that's probably one of the best solutions, because, although we're a big organization, it is tough for us to be distributing this to multiple sites around the Bay Area. So again, having this kind of business model of collecting it from us and then distributing it to the community immediately has been very beneficial. Labeling product safely is also a big part of it, right? We have our cafe admin side that's able to help us out, but not all organizations have that, right? And again, it's just something that needs to be thought of when you are providing food, especially prepared meals to the community, right? And making sure that all that is, safely listed. And again, it takes time and money, right? With stickers, labeling, things like that to make that successful. Next slide. So just a couple more barriers here. Just when it comes to food time and temperature monitoring, right? When it comes to prepared food, you really have to watch that carefully. You have to make sure that you're cooling it properly, right? To a certain temperature over a certain amount of time. So again, that takes a certain SOP and process that you must follow to make sure that it's safe for the community. So just something, again, that businesses need to be thinking about. As far as the labor to complete these donations, right? This is another thing. A lot of restaurants, right, and just food organizations are always on a tight schedule. I know for us, like if we have our morning team works from 6 to 2:30, they are working nonstop just to produce the food just for the customers, let alone having to cool the food, package it, and create those labels, right? So the labor side of it too is just something to think about, and it's a little bit of a barrier for us too. And then comprehensive product list of items that can and cannot be donated, right? So just having that in your standard operating procedure, we found that as we've grown the program nationwide, some of our partners have these, donation guidelines that they provide. So I think that's also a very important step to have when you're donating prepared food. Next slide, please. So packaging is another one, right? It's a traditional cost to the organization, right? If you are packaging things and then providing it to the community, and then obviously education and training, which again it's why it's so important that we're having this meeting here today. And then some of the last slides. So what have been some of the benefits so far? So businesses in the food industry will now watch their waste amounts from a new perspective. When you're seeing all these types of donations that are going out, right, it's great that you're seeing all this product going out, but it really puts it into perspective, kind of what Mauricio was talking about as with the stadium example, right? You really understand how much you're actually, that could have been going to a landfill. Create new jobs in the growing ingredient industry, feeding families with food insecurities, and businesses and community leaders working together to tackle important issues such as food insecurity, and then team building experience that all staff can get behind. So I know that our staff has really enjoyed participating in our food recovery program and food rescue program. And again, that may not have been possible without SB 1383. So a couple stats I just want to share at the end here on the last slide. What we've seen in 2022 here from January to May, just last month, with our operations fully open, we had meals donated were 184,000, so just shy of 185,000 meals. Pounds donated was 221,000 pounds, and greenhouse reduction in metric tons was 230. So 230 metric tons saved from going to the landfill, right? So again, from a food producer perspective, hopefully we were able to provide a little bit of idea of, again, what businesses are going to expect in the future and what we've been doing so far. So hopefully we can answer some questions soon too. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And since we're in person, we can actually applaud all of these fantastic speakers. So I thank you all so much. What I love is kind of the diverse perspectives that everyone's coming from and how it kind of rounds out the whole picture. Before we go on to questions, I'm just gonna let everyone know that there are cookies around the corner and drinks. If you want to get up and grab something, feel free anytime. Sorry for all of you who are on Zoom. I don't know how to get cookies to your house. So I have so many questions, but I want to first just kind of emphasize what Ryan said about taking this and bringing it nationwide. Like, how cool is that, that something that happened here in California is now happening nationwide at one company and hopefully at others, right? One of the things that you said, Ryan, though, was that for you, it's really important that the community side has infrastructure. And Loaves and Fishes clearly has been able to ramp up. You said you got a grant. I'd like to hear first from Jack a little bit about how the county can help the community organizations have better infrastructure to receive the food. And then maybe from Latrice or from Sonia, how it feels to be on that side and to need the infrastructure. So Jack?
All right, that is a great question. It's maybe the $1 million question. I'm full of jokes today. Thank you. Oh, much better. All right, so I think it's important to say and repeat that food recovery is not a new idea. Food recovery groups, the Food Bank, Nuestra Casa, Loaves and Fishes, Samaritan House, they've been doing this work for decades. Food recovery is, but the county and local governments were new to food recovery. So there's a lot of learning to be done. SB 1383 was passed in 2016, and the rules of the law weren't done until 2020. So there's still a lot of learning that we need to do about the existing capacity that's out there of our food recovery organizations throughout the county, and what their potential is, what their interest is. So if you're a food recovery group, we do have a survey that we're spreading around right now to try to get some of that information. And that's a good starting point. And I know my team in the Office of Sustainability in the county, we've been working with Second Harvest, Nuestra Casa, and Samaritan House, and also Pacifica Resource Center up in the north of the county to try to scale up their capacity for the last few years. And what that's looked like, we've been helping to purchase trucks, pay for some staff time to build these relationships with these generators, and then actually go out and collect the food. So that's how we're starting off, but there's still a lot to learn and flesh out. Funding for food recovery is going to be especially important long-term, and that's something that the county understands, and we need to really find long-term solutions, which is what we'll be working on for the next few years with our food recovery partners.
Then on the other side, for those of us who are receiving, it's a partnership. So when we talk about the county and about Second Harvest Food Bank and all the agencies that are here, we have been in anticipation of the law going into effect and moving forward. Again, is not new, but now we're thinking best practices. Okay, we've been doing it this way for so long. What else can we be doing? What could be more efficient and effective for what we're bringing to our community? So it's a constant dialogue. It is education, but it's also not resting on our laurels either, because we do want to do better and do more because the community is demanding it of us. So the great thing is we have the partners from the county, from each other. And ideas that I had not heard even myself today, I'm like, great, I could use that in the future for Samaritan House. And I'm sure we're all learning right here, right now. So it's not just staying with what you've known, but really listening to each other and working to see what else can be done, and never stop learning and never stop working together as a team.
Thank you. Sonia, do you want to tell us a little bit also about what Nuestra Casa is looking for in the future?
So with Nuestra Casa right now, we are, so we've been doing this since 2019. And since 2020, there was a really big demand and a lot of working with new partners and working now with the stores. It's been a lot of learning and a lot of changes. And it has been really beneficial at being able to have those conversations with our partners and with the stores to see what's working and what's not working. And just continuing that process and eventually adding new partners or more stores and continuing the work and adding a little bit more.
Can I add to that a little bit, Petra? I do think that as these folks have highlighted, how all of this is going to get funded is one of the big unanswered questions, right? We have been doing this work for years. It has been a kind of a dance where people piece together the money to get infrastructure, to hire people or find volunteers or whatever their model is. But as the law is now requiring people to pick up more often and you know, the food generators are going to want that more consistent service, you know, it would be great to see some longer term funding mechanisms put in place that allow the food recovery organizations to have a consistent flow to help fund that ongoing recovery work they're doing. The food businesses get some tax credits. You know, this could end up in the form of, for instance, you know, year-end donations to the organizations who have been helping them with food recovery. That's probably one of the simplest ones. It could also be built into, you know, some of the waste structures. And this is something that Jack knows more about than I do. And in both counties, people tell me this is more complicated than I think it is. But I'm told that all the time. But in my mind, there's something that should maybe be attached to food that is going into landfill that turns into a fee that gets turned around and paid out to food recovery organizations who are helping prevent that. You know, there's also talk about, could there be straight up business models? But it's a challenging area to create business models because the nonprofits who are doing this, we're not set up to, you know, invoice, meet terms of service, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We're providing a service primarily to our communities and partnering with these food generator organizations in order to try and do that. But I think we're all going to learn more over the next couple of years about what's really going to work and how to really work together to make this happen. I think one of the myths I hear all the time is that there's a lot of money out there for people to rescue food with. And I can tell you that that is not the case. There are some, there have been some grants through Cal Recycle, and we have a small grant through Feeding America that's helping us partner with more organizations in our community. But for the ongoing operational, there's no current business model for that. And in many cases, these organizations can patch it together because our job is to get food to people, but we should be thinking about, are there some flows of funds that can make sure that that food continues to flow to the people who need it?
Does anybody else want to talk about funding? Because I know it's our favorite thing as nonprofits.
You know, Petra, yeah, the funding part is interesting, and what Tracy mentioned earlier about myths and so forth. Now, the law doesn't have any funding mechanisms except for the fees for the haulers, right? The franchise fees and so forth. So that's between the garbage people and the counties and the cities. That's about as much funding as there is. There's no other mechanisms. Unfortunately, to rebuttal Tracy, it's hard because you will have to have the legislature, Sacramento, modify the law to where they will say X amount of the fees needs to go to nonprofits for what they're thing. So the cities need to do that. Once they do that, then yes, the money could flow that way out of the fees that are already built into the law. But we know that probably will take many years because Sacramento moves very slowly in a good or bad way. But the funding is the hardest part. That is where we all need the help. So I think, unfortunately, the state, the counties and the cities have not been in the food business for a long time. Counties have been, let me backtrack about, the counties have been with senior nutritional programs, Meals on Wheels and some of those things. They have funded some of that, but they haven't need to fund this fund recovery part, these kind of programs that are continuously needed now, as we have all seen the increase of services and all the folks that are needing their food insecure and need our help. So yes, we do need to pay for the trucks. We need to pay for the drivers. We need to pay for everything else. We're very thankful in our case, for example, we have partners like Flagship that provides us with some of that support. But again, it's all those things that not always could be done via volunteers. I know that's the first thing people say is just get more volunteers. But it's hard to give a volunteer a $100,000 truck and be there every day from 7 to 4 to do what it needs to be done, have a background check to be able to go into the airport or go into MEDAS facilities and so forth. It's complicated. It's not that simple. And yes, that's what we need the funding. So I think, unfortunately, the cities now need to get into the food business, which they have not historically. They didn't have to do it. So now they have to do it. And they're like, well, where's that money going to come from? So again, there's cities with more surplus than other ones, counties that have more money than other ones, and they're haggling about those stuff. But I think we need to, as organizations, talk to our local counties and our local cities and start educating them. We're not going to tell them what to do about this. You're not going to go tell them, give me money. Well, we could, but that doesn't work. It's an education. I think it's more of an awareness campaign at all levels. And here the thing is, not only with cities and counties, but for the food producers. Tracy mentioned a few different ways. Yes, there is a cost that Ryan mentioned earlier. The tray of food that you saw there is about $1. Okay, if you do hundreds of those a day, you do the math. You got to pay somebody an hour or two. You do the math. Now, some organizations might be able to fund that up front. Some might not. Some their margins are a lot smaller. Yes, we can provide them an in-kind letter and everything else, and they can take some of that to their accountant, and then they get a tax credit. Now, it's minimal compared to what they're fronting. They feel good. It is a good thing for the community. But we need to educate them why they want to do that. Why do they want to do those things? And that's all the food producers, all the Costco's of the world, the Targets, the Safeways, everybody needs to be part of this. And one of the things that I think as nonprofits, we need to change the way we do this. And yes, this is going to be scary, but we have to be able to push back and sometimes say no. And here's the thing, is the reason why. We know it's taking whatever food they want us to give us. We were happy, we kept quiet, and we went on. You tell somebody no, you were afraid that they were not going to give you food anymore. So sometimes we got to push back. And also we need to say, great, I love the food, thank you, but I need $10 to pay for gas today, because we need to help on that. So that's where, as the industry, as a culture, we need to push back a little bit in a good way. And that's why I'm calling it an awareness campaign on all of this needed funding, all this cost and all those things. It's going to take a long time to change the way this is seen, Food recovery has been around forever. It started with canned foods and everything else, right? Then it moved to groceries. Now we're in prepared food. It's evolved, and for the same reason, the cost has changed, and also the need for funding. So, and I can keep going on with this for a while, but it's all to you. Thank you.
But I won't let you.
Oh no, I'm in trouble.
Oh, no.
Okay.
No.
Go ahead.
No,
Tracy.
actually, I wanted to note that County of San Mateo did do some initial investment in trying to build some infrastructure with some of these key partners. And we're all really, really grateful for that. But we know they don't have an ongoing revenue stream for it either. So it's something that needs to be figured out all across the board. I think for most of us, when we talk and people ask us, how do you fund your food recovery? It's the same way we fund everything else we do in getting food to the community. It's through our donations. And, you know, for most of us, it's just all part of one big ball of wax. So.
There's a question from Zoom, and then we'll take questions from the audience here as well. There are actually two, but I'm going to kind of combine them, which is if you're a smaller organization or school and you're interested in making connections and getting food, how do you do it? And how do you make sure you're not competing with other organizations, and especially with larger organizations, for the food? I don't know who wants to take that.
You know, one of the things that as nonprofits we've been doing, and we've been part of some food recovery organizations, is trying to share with each other, what are we doing? Santa Clara County, we've been doing some of that. I know San Mateo County is doing a lot of that also, to try to not overlap. But I think, unfortunately, there's still a lot of organizations that are smaller, grassroots. They're doing their thing, and they're not sharing what they're doing. Maybe they're afraid that they share it. Somebody's going to, I don't know, take it over, or they're going to lose a funder or whatever. But I think that's the part that is important, that we share. Hey, you know, I do go to these schools. I go to those encampments. I work with these shelters, right? And that way, you know, we can coordinate, or maybe we do it in different days and so forth. But I think it's communication that needs to be had between all the nonprofits, and there's still some strides to be done there.
So who's doing the coordination and the communication? Who would these people who are doing small food recovery, local food recovery, who would they tell?
I will go to there. I mean, I will find a central location. Probably, fortunately, we'll probably bounce to the county in that case. But it could be a Thrive, like yourself, organization, to where you're reaching out to other nonprofits.
Thank you. I'm not busy at all.
But I mean, that is the problem, finding somewhere to coordinate all of this. I mean, I'm a member of a couple of recycle, reuse organizations in the state, and so forth. And there's some coordination there, but again, there's no central location. Santa Clara County started some similar to what Jackie's been working on, but it's still not broad enough. I think somebody will have to take the initiative and just really reach out to everybody.
Yeah. And for San Mateo County, it is a collaboration. I've never seen a county, and I've lived several places around this country, be as collaborative as San Mateo County. The Office of Sustainability is helping to coordinate. So a lot of us who would benefit from getting the food, we're at the table together and we're talking. It's really quite interesting, and it's great that we have that type of collaboration in San Mateo, where if you have that common goal, we're at the table together and we talk, and we try not to overlap. Yes, there's competition for dollars, there's competition for resources, but it's not to the degree that I've ever seen anywhere else. It really is truly about working together. It really is about, I want to make sure that my partner agency is successful, because we're all successful if we're all banding together around one common goal. And it's not seen as, let me hold on to my resource. It quite literally is, contact Nuestra Casa, contact Samaritan House, whoever it is. And it's like, okay, why don't you come to this meeting? And we just lay it out there and work together on how this could work together. Because yeah, we do have some of the same areas we're serving, but I promise you that's another family, another household that'll be served that wasn't served before, based on what that particular organization, they have the reach in that community. So we can't, there's still a lot of people who are not asking for help, but another school That school may have access to the family who didn't know anything about any of us. So why not? We just say, come to the table.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that from the food bank perspective, which is more about groceries than meals. We do serve as sort of a hub for both partnering food generators with some of our agencies that are near them, and with getting that food potentially to locations where we distribute. We do have partners that distribute at 900 locations, but we're always trying to take a geographic look and understand, are there gaps in this community? Is there nothing at this school? And so people can contact the food bank if they think their community needs more food, and we can evaluate, is there someone right next door you didn't know about? Or, would you be a good location for a general distribution where you could get access to our fresh produce and everything, and then also supplement it by doing some food rescue? So that's a good place to start, and we can help point people in the right direction.
Thank you, Tracy. I think there's a question over here. I'm going to hand my microphone so that Zoom can do it. And I actually just looked at my watch, so unfortunately, this is the last question.
Michael Barber, I work for Supervisor Dave Pine in San Mateo County. And thank you for all of the work that all of you do. The food recovery side of this is just amazing. The question I have, and maybe it's directed towards Jack, is there's that 20% and 75% rule in this law. And the part that concerns me is that from a policy perspective is actually the 75%. That's a lot of waste. I mean, the example you talked about of the Rose Bowl a day of food going out, is there some mechanism that we could transfer more of that into food recovery and less into food waste in this process? And just from a green perspective, because we're trying to prevent not just this waste, but plastics and so forth, is pushing the cost up at the source more than at the back end. Because historically, this country, you pay for everything at the back end, not at the front end. So when we're looking for financing, is there a way to ensure that there's a penalty to whoever's producing the food, if it's Safeway, Costco, restaurants, that it costs more for you to get rid of it than it is to pay the service to get it to food recovery? So just a statement / question. How can we shift that dynamic?
Thank you, Michael. Jack, do you want to take that?
Take the first stab at it. So I want to start with that point about the 75% and the 20%. So those are the two goals of SB 1383. One is to reduce the amount of organic material going to landfill by 75%. And the other goal is to increase food recovery by 20%. And even though they're separate goals, they interlap. So that's 75% of organic material going to landfill today. A portion of that is recoverable, surplus, perfectly nutritious, fine, edible food. So as we meet that 20% food recovery goal, that's going to take a bite into that 75% diversion goal. It won't get it the full way there by any means, but it's going to count for a percentage of it. And as for that, pushing the costs upstream, I think we're going to need a lot of different approaches to making sure this whole system is appropriately supported. And if there's efficient ways of doing that, then I think the Office of Sustainability team would definitely want to talk more about it.
I am so sorry to do this because this conversation is really interesting, but it's 5 o'clock. So thank you all so much for coming. Just a huge thank you again to the panelists for enlightening us and for bringing their perspectives and for giving us a lot of, food for thought. You knew that was coming. Really appreciate it and hope to continue these kinds of conversations and continue making more connections. And for everybody who's in the audience and who's in Zoom, we will send out the follow-up slides and follow-up information so that you can continue to get more information, so you can bother Jack whenever you feel like it. And we just really appreciate the opportunity to have this discussion and to bring it to the community. So thank you all so much. Thank you for being a part of Thrive, and have a great evening, and go eat cookies.